Hello everyone, and welcome to another game of World of Warships. Today's replay is from Jasper, and he's in a Des Moines, a tier 10 US cruiser. He's on the map Northern Lights in a 4-point domination game. And it's a mild tier 10 battle. There are actually few tier 8s around. There is only one enemy raider. There are no carriers, no submarines, and there is only one destroyer per team. So that's pretty interesting. Now, the enemy Smolensk here has the unfortunate fate of being hydroed by the Minotaur, I think, and so it's spotted. Meanwhile, Jasper can somewhat farm it with mostly being undetected. Well, he was mostly undetected until the Salem raided him. Now, the Minotaur is unfortunately realizing way too late that it basically has no friends and the enemy is pushing pretty hard. So we've just lost the Minotaur. Now, what's also pretty bad is that the friendly destroyer is in the 9-10 line, which is where it's absolutely useless. Now, the Sherman isn't the sneakiest of destroyers, but it's the only one the friendly team has. And between like a Des Moines, a Minnow, and a Sichong here on this flank, the spotting would have been really valuable. It would have also provided them more warning of the Salem. Maybe it would have even allowed the Minotaur to escape. And also, like, the Sherman could have, after spotting this flank, once it saw the Salem, just move towards C and grab that, although maybe the Sichong is going to do that. Now, surely a Sherman would like to sit in its smoke and farm stuff with its guns and have spotting elsewhere. But being like the only destroyer, like going to the 9-10 line is really gonna hurt your team. But be that as it may, this battle is far from over. We have a large fleet at the A side, and they would really be needed here. Now, if they push pretty heavily, if they can overwhelm those ships, it might still work, right? Especially if the enemy gets stuck in this cap here for a while. The friendly tier pit here is wisely somewhat retreating, because it's not gonna be pushing all of those ships. Meanwhile, Jasper is trying to figure out how to best play this. So what he could try to do is go through like this channel here. Well, I mean, he could go all the way to the other side. That wouldn't be very helpful though, because that's where like the enemy force is being pushed this way. Could try to go through this channel after the enemy fleet. There aren't really any good options, right? I mean, he's sort of trapped here. He can't like reunite with the A side because he would sail right in front of those ships. What he can, of course, do here is try to just use this as cover and then farm the enemies once they push past and hope they aren't all coming for him. Now, as Des Moines, you don't have torpedoes, so there is no... Like, if you were in any cruiser with torpedoes, right, this would be like the perfect opportunity for a torpedo ambush. Unfortunately, well, I guess the Des Moines has one torpedo. You can always ram. But we aren't quite that desperate yet, are we? So, the tier pit is coming around. Unfortunately, he's raided, so he can't like stay here undetected and try to farm them. But he's going to help out his own tier pits here by getting some damage into the enemies. Now, Hydro is still running. This enemy tier pit is probably torpedoing exactly, so he might need to go a little bit forward there. He is relatively broadside, and now the tier pit's guns are looking his way, so he is going to accelerate and try to get into cover before any shells arrive. So, he managed to do a little bit of damage, but, well, he was forced to retreat and the tier pit is down. Meanwhile, at least the friendly team is sort of pushing B, and the friendlies have secured C. So, there might be some hope over there. If the enemy team can grab B and sink a few ships there before the enemy reinforcements like arrive, that would be lovely, although, yeah, we'll see. Meanwhile, there is a Smolensk coming here in the North Carolina. So Jasper is being pushed from two sides, but I mean, it's a Smolensk. As a Des Moines, you should be pretty good at dealing with a Smolensk, to be honest. And with the islands here, maybe he can have some cover from the North Carolina, deal with the Smolensk, and then turn around and finish off said North Carolina. Now, the Sherman is... I'm not sure what the Sherman is doing down there. The Sherman doesn't have enough torpedoes for a torpedo ambush. What it could be doing is just smoking up, then using his hydros to keep the North Carolina spotted and shooting it, but you can't really burst it down. So the North Cal could just push that smoke. Meanwhile, it's Smolensk is slowly going down. Unfortunately, Hydro isn't ready and Smolensk do have torpedoes. But I'm not sure if it got any off because I don't think it had the angle. Now we just lost the Sherman, which is honestly rather unsurprising. I'm not sure what exactly it was thinking down there. Because as I said, like, you don't really have the torpedoes to burst out at North Cal. So, well, you know, your friendly destroyer didn't provide much usefulness anyway so far in this game. So I guess it's no great loss. Meanwhile, the friendlies actually have secured another cap here on the left side, and now they're going back to defend the center. The problem is they haven't really managed to sink much from the enemies, right? Despite the overwhelming numbers, the friendlies did sort of push in, but the enemies just disengaged, and the friendlies haven't gotten anything out of this. So they are now quite a bit behind on points. Meanwhile, Jasper is now engaging in North Carolina. I mean, North Carolina can just go through his nose, so this is going to be rather problematic. He just needs to get lucky, I suppose. He's doing a lot of good damage here to the North Cal. And there we go. Nicely done. And the problem is, when you are in like close quarters fight like this with the Des Moines, is a lot of battleships will overmatch your nose. So in the end, all you can do is, no matter how well you play, hope that they don't get no citadels, cause there is absolutely no defense that you have against that. But it was well done by Jasper. The enemy did not get some no citadels, and so he can continue to wreak havoc, hopefully. There is a Salem over there. Salem seems to be not moving a lot, and armor piercing is on its way. Now with the Des Moines armor piercing, that could actually end pretty nicely there. Yeah, okay, 3 ricochets. I was hoping that he could get citadels at this angle, but we'll have to yeah, there we go. See, he can get citadels at this angle. So, not much of the Salem remaining. Of course, it's a Salem, it has a very powerful heal, but so far it looks like it's not ready. And there we go. That takes care of the enemy raider. Unfortunately, though, it's not like the friendlies have something that would really profit from that anymore. And also, unfortunately, the friendlies have lost the majority of the caps. So they're now bleeding points. Ship-wise, it's still pretty much anyone's game. Now, Jasper used his radar here, possibly to figure out if the Shiva vessel was still around and to make sure that he isn't getting ambushed around the island. What he found was an Ibuki that's now getting pretty heavily farmed. We currently have no real idea where the Chima is, I suppose. But honestly, it probably went over there to grab some of the friendliest points. Now the Ibuki has been dealt with, and that puts us at a 4 versus 4. Now we have the Henry there. I mean, it seems like a pretty healthy Henry, so it might be able to do something. Smolensk pretty low, that's good news. So the Shikishima, let's check some hit points there. Okay, so Shikishima pretty low, but it's getting the Smolensk, that's nice. Sejong is gonna go down. Shima is over there. Okay, so yeah, Shikishima is probably going down to Satir Pits. But the Henry might be able to finish off the Yamagi, hopefully. Meanwhile, Jasper is camping, but he also is shooting because his firepower is probably needed. So far, nobody's interrupting him anyway. Now, if he can get this cap, this would be very nice, because it would, if the friend is in equal points, income than the enemies, and while they're still a little bit behind, it wouldn't be so bad. Now, it looks like we've just lost the Henry, which is a shame, because I was hoping at least it would do. And there goes the Shikishima. So now Jasper is alone against 3. The good news is neither the Amagi nor the Tirpitz are that healthy, and the Shima, well, I mean, if he can ambush the Shima. The thing is, the Shima can perfectly, well, just stay in concealment and take caps because of the heavy enemy points lead. And ooh, that was unlucky. But as I've said, you know, you can't really do much against it. Now, thankfully, none of the enemies have a caliber high enough to overmatch the 30mm side armor of the Des Moines. But both of... No, wait, the Tirpitz can't even overmatch the nose armor. Okay, so fighting the Tirpitz is going to be not the worst, because it can't overmatch the nose, but the Amagi most certainly can. So fighting an Amagi, it's just down to RNG. Now the Tirpitz is disengaging, looks like. Well, it's just gonna take the B cap, which is a shame. Because if the Tirpitz would just come this way and burn, that would be so much nicer. So Jasper is now waiting because the Amagi is almost out of his gun range, and if the Tirpitz leaves... Tirpitz, I mean, yeah. If the Tirpitz leaves, he could be, you know, undetected here, and then he's gonna go after the Amagi, which is close. The problem is, while the Tirpitz might be out of his range, he's still inside the Tirpitz range. So as soon as he engages the Amagi, he might be in a crossfire. The good news is that German battleships are not known for their accuracy. There is the Amagi, it's pretty close, and now RNG is engaged once again. That worked pretty well, honestly. Now the Amagi is relatively broadside, but the Amagi has, unfortunately, a relatively well protected citadel at this range, so it's just gonna be penetrations. And yeah, he's just going for the guaranteed penetrations here, which will give the which will just wreck the Amagi, hopefully in short order.
The enemy is about to win. Enemy battleship destroyed.
Now, he is alive and the Amagi is down. That's what we call good news. The bad news is the enemy is about to win, and unfortunately the announcer for once is actually pretty accurate there. Now the Tirpitz is coming back, right? In an ideal world, the Tirpitz would have charged him earlier, would have burned down, and then he could have hunted down the Amagi just as he did. Although if he had been in a long engagement with the Tirpitz, he might not have survived the Amagi, who knows. Now we also don't know where the Shima is, right? The Shima hasn't been seen for a long time. But, yeah, this is gonna be tricky, right? If he can ambush the Shima with a radar, he can potentially take out the Shima. That would be good news. But he still has to fight the Tirpitz, and he has barely any hit points left for that. If he's in secondary range, the secondaries alone would take him down. There's nobody to spot for him. If he could like radar the Tirpitz behind an island without being detected himself, and then farm the Tirpitz. But he only has one radar left. If he uses it for the Tirpitz, how is he gonna deal with the Shima? Not to mention the fact that it's only 3 minutes 20 remaining, and the points are also becoming problematic. Now he has gone for radar here, and he found the Shima. I'm not entirely sure what made him radar here, but he did find the Shima. Maybe it was just a precaution. Maybe it was just an act of desperation. I mean, the Tirpitz, I think he could have been trying to catch the Tirpitz, but it's still too far out. Now, those troops are thankfully easily dodged. While he can just gun down the Shima here, the problem is, well, he's on fire, so he has to damage con. The problem is that the Tirpitz is coming around this corner. And he's not gonna survive the Tirpitz with 851 hit points, so that was a trade there in the end. He got the Shima and the Shima got him, and unfortunately that means the enemy team won. Despite that, Jasper managed to get more experience than anyone on the winning team. And it just wasn't a hard enough carry, unfortunately. So Jasper got a Confederate, a Kraken, and a high caliber, sinking 6 enemy ships, scoring 192,000 points of damage, and it still wasn't enough to actually win a battle. So, oh well, I guess you can't win them all. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and I'll see you next time.